Hi all, welcome to the channel, welcome to the workshop. So today I've got my TRX4 on the workbench. It's been for a few swims through sea, vein and rivers. So I'm going to be doing a bit of maintenance on the axles, the differentials and the portal axles. As well as showing you guys how I waterproof my electrics. The electrics that I have in here are waterproof anyway, but you still have your receiver which may or may not be waterproof. So I'll show you how I ensure mine are. So with all that said, let's get to it. Okay, just going to start off with the receiver. This I've already taken out of the truck. This has already been waterproofed, but I will just show you what I done. This is a Fly Sky receiver. It's an 8-channel. What is it? FSR9B. That's what that one is. So it's only held together by a couple of screws and some clips. So I've just taken off the 2 screws. And then basically you need to get the circuit board out. And this is what we waterproof. As you can see, that is looking extremely glossy, and that is the waterproofing. And you can see it's completely coated, including the bottoms of these pins. When I put this together, I use a Vaseline or something like that to keep the water off these pins and stop them corroding. But I thought I'd just show you that one. So I'll just put that one back together. So this is what I use. This is an acrylic conformal coating. I'll just quickly show you. This is an old circuit board from a hard drive. But basically, all you need to do is get some of this coating on a brush, and all you do is just brush it on, making sure all the components are completely covered, and this won't harm the circuit board at all. It will just protect it from water, and basically seal it all up and stop it potentially corroding once it gets in water. So you can see that. So I just started coating these parts here. I'm not going to coat the whole lot because you can see how you do it. And basically you just coat it all, and then you just leave that probably 24 hours dry off. You can then recoat it if need be, just to make sure that all components are sealed, especially ones when you've got high rise components like this. It's always good to make sure that they are fully coated, and certainly the pins and things like that, all metal components, all completely coated. So that's the conformal coating. That's what I do for my receivers, or certainly ones that I know are going to get wet. So now we move on to the truck. One thing that I haven't conformal coated is this little control box here. I do need to do that at some point, just to protect it a bit. This is just a little lighting control box. So I'm not going to show you that one in a minute because I won't do that one just yet. So this is what we're interested in. You can see I have cleaned and washed this off since going to the beach, because that was its last outing. You'll notice I've got a custom control box here. Now I've broken the lid for this and I need to print a new one. This is actually a custom printed one. And you can see what I've done here. I've got little cutouts for the various wires. So as well as waterproofing that, and that sits in there nicely, it doesn't fit in the standard TRX box. I have created this little box with a lid over, and I've used some rubberized glue, which keeps just a little watertight trap there. So when all the cables are running through that, this box is relatively waterproof, or probably water resistant more than waterproof, and just gives that extra little bit of protection against water for the connectors and the box, even though it's waterproof. So I've got the stock TRX4 motor on there at the minute. I've seen loads of people have problems with these, and they'd say they corrode and foul up, and they don't like going in water, they don't like going in the sea. But I've had absolutely no problem with that, and this has been dunked so many times I can't remember. I have upgraded from the TRX4 receiver. So I've got the HobyWings receiver there, and I can put links in the description below where you can get all these bits from. One of the main reasons I got that for is because it had this little fly out lead for the power button, which makes it so much easier to turn it on and off when you've got the body in place. Especially since adding the fenders, which I did make a video of, so I'll put a link in that you'll be able to catch that one. But if I just put the body on loosely, you can see just up in here there's enough space to get my finger in, and that's where you can just see the power button is. So it makes it really useful to turn that on and off without the body coming off. So as I said, been swimming a few times now, so the business end that I want to have a look at are these axles, so the portal axles, the differentials. I'm not going to worry about the gearbox, that should be absolutely fine. It's just, this is mainly a maintenance job for the axles itself and the portal axles, and as you can see it's still running absolutely fine, although you can hear that it does sound a little bit dry. So that's one of the main reasons that I'm having a look at this now. You can see that the steering servo is all nice and loose. All the linkages are all good as well. Getting a bit of corrosion on the linkages. Actually, that might just be mud. No, a little bit of corrosion on the linkages, but it goes over rocks and things, so not worried about that at all. And linkages are nice and cheap to replace anyway. One thing I do for this, when I go anywhere where I know it's going to get wet, once I've cleaned it, I just coat it in WD-40. So that has helped protect this so much. And it looks like I've hardly used this, based on just the damage that's been shown here. So with the links scratched, but minimal corrosion. These side rockers, again, minimal rock clearance on those, and you can see that even these have been bashed a bit, but it spends a lot of the time just going up and down muddy slopes, and most of the time obviously that's wet, damp, so this is always coated and covered in mud. However, it always washes off nicely because of the WD-40, so it's always worth knowing what you're going to be doing beforehand and just doing some prep work and looking after your vehicles. So what I'm going to be doing, going to be taking off the bolts here, releasing these links, undoing the bolts here and taking off the axles itself. Obviously I'll take the wheels off first, and the same with the back. So the two links and the two screws for the suspension, they're all going to come off. Obviously the front one needs to do an extra link, which would be the steering link, and then we'll have a look at getting the axles apart. As you can see, there is still some water in the tyres. Again, they probably need to come out as well, but I can leave that for now. So now we've got the wheels off, I'm just going to undo a few of these Allen key bolts, and we're going to start off with the front one. Try and release this one. There's a couple of extras for the front, one for this panhard bar, and then there's one for the steering servo. There's that one, and then I've got the steering servo one just here. It probably doesn't make much difference which one you remove, whether it's the one from the steering servo or whether it's the arm from the axle itself. Right, so we've got that steering one out, the panhard bar out. We've taken out these links here, and then this drive shaft. We've got one more actually for the front. I always forget about that one. Okay, so that's that one out, and then the drive shaft just separates like that. So that is the front axle out. Right, so now we've got the front one done. We're going to do the back, and the back ones, we've only got 4 points of contact on here. So we've got the ones with the shocks and these links here, and then we've got the 2 under links there. So we just take those ones out, and then that'll be the rear axle. And if you don't currently have a TRX4, this is the TRX4 Sport. So this one doesn't have the locking diffs and the 2-speed. This one, the diffs are permanently locked. I will also put a couple of links in the description where you can get one if you would like one. There is also the TRX4 Mini that has come out recently, which I believe, which I will hopefully be getting for my son. So that hopefully be on the channel at some point. Right, so we've got those 2 links out, and then we've got the other 2 links just there. And it's just a single screw for that one, for both those links. And just as the front, that shaft will just separate by pulling on it. So that's that. Now I can feel the grease in that is pretty good still, but we'll have a open it up and have a proper look at it. So having a good look at the drive shaft, this is the rear one. So we've got the portal axles here, which have got a few screws on it. So we need to take off the hex gear. We need to take off these 2 screws here, and then we've got several screws in the back here to separate that portal housing. And then for the drive shaft, for the differential itself, we've got 4 screws just there, and that will take away the differential cover. So I'm going to do that one first. So let's have a look. So that's what it looks like, and as you can see, it's actually not looking too bad at all. The grease is still nice and fluid. There's no bits in it at all. It still spins absolutely lovely. But I will still take this out, give it a really good clean, and we're still going to put some fresh grease in it. So I've now just undone a couple of screws on the end of the portal axle, which you can see just here. That allows for this portal axle to come off completely. and then we've got the half drive shaft there, and as you can see that's nicely coated in grease as well. Just going to put that on there. We're going to clean that one off as well. You can see that has loosened up that, so we just need to do the same for this side, and then that whole gear assembly will come out. So that's the other portal axle. Just wiggle that one off, just like that. And then we can pull that drive shaft out as well, just like that. You can see in the end there, we do have a little bit of sand in there, and what looks to be where water has obviously gotten in there, but that union is not watertight. It should be noted. There is no seal or anything that makes that watertight. This one should now be completely loose. So there we go. And you can see the little gear down in there. And if we want to take that one out, we need to undo this Allen key here, Allen bolt, and then that will come off, and then that gear can be pushed up inside here. Now, if you find that one does get rounded, you probably will have to drill it out, but that comes off just like that, and you can see that gear just pushes up and pushes out just like that. So we now have that gearbox empty, apart from the bearings, which you can see in there, and we've got another one just here. Probably just going to surface clean those, because as you can see they look absolutely fine. They're spinning absolutely lovely, and because they've had all the grease in there, nothing has gotten in there, so there's no sand or water that's gotten into there, which is good. Now, one of the reasons that sand and water doesn't really get in there is the grease that I use. So this is what I use. So the Aqua Slip waterproof marine grease, which, as you can see, prevents corrosion. So what I'm going to do is just give that a nice clean out. It is possible to disassemble the axle even further. I am choosing not to do that today, mainly because I can't see any need to at the moment. If I'd seen that there had been lots of water inside, or that the grease was really discoloured, then that might give me cause for concern to get it apart a little bit further. But for now, that is looking pretty good. I'm happy with that. I could go down the route of properly degreasing these, put them in a degreasing bath, etc. However, my plan at the moment is to just give a basic maintenance on them, which is going to be just cleaning off the old grease, and then putting it back in with new grease. And part of this maintenance was to also see how well they are doing under the conditions that I put it through, and I have to say that it's going very well. You can see that they are all nice and clean, none of them are broken, and all in absolutely perfect condition. So I've just had a clean, so nothing wrong with those. And we have one that goes on the end there, Again, just check the run of that. It's lovely and smooth. And that one goes on the end of there. And again, you can see and hear there's absolutely no sound from that at all. It is running perfectly smooth. And with this one, it's always good to check if there's any wear on the shaft, and again, wearing on any of the teeth and how much is worn down. And at the minute, that is again looking really good. If you find that these are wearing down really quickly, that'll probably mean you've got not enough grease. So when that rides along there, it'll be creating heat and friction, and therefore won't run smoothly, and you'll find that the metal on metal will just wear down. You can see there is wear on here, you can see the shiny parts, but that is perfectly normal. You don't want to obviously pack too much grease in either, because that will also cause problems, because you end up almost locking the drive shafts up. Right, so just going to take out this grease as well. So that's basically it for cleaning on those ones. So I'm just going to put a smidge of fresh grease down in the bottom of there. I'm going to just dip the shaft of this one into the grease, and that will ensure that that has plenty of grease under it and around it for that to spin nicely in those bearings. There are going to be people that say you don't need to grease it because it's going to a bearing. However, it's more to act a bit like a water barrier because of the waterproof grease. And as you can see, it is working because this wasn't filled with water, and this axle is not watertight. You need to remember that the water can come and get through down these portal axles. So when that portal axle sat in there, that is not a watertight seal. There's no rubber there. It's only that that bearing and the drive shaft that runs down there. And as you can see, that is not a tight fit in there. So that is perfectly capable of water running down the inside of that. Right. So what I'm going to do here, just smear a little bit of grease on the inside of there. And then I'm going to be placing that one in there. And just ensuring that spins nicely. And then we're going to place a good whack of grease just like that and get that all working in nicely. And again, you don't need a great deal. The main thing in this, obviously to protect, is these gears here. So putting bits on the shaft and things, yeah, it's just superfluous. What will happen obviously is as the truck drives around, centrifugal force of any grease on that shaft will also be flung to the corners of the gearbox. Some of that will go onto that central pinion gear, and then obviously it will end up going onto the gear here. And again, centrifugal force will mean that it will get little pockets of grease to help keep these nicely lubricated. And again, just going to put some on the back of the gear for that same purpose. And again, it helps with the water barrier. I'm can see that will squeeze out nicely just there, and we can clean the excess off from the outside. And we just need to screw up those 4 screws and hold that in place. So that is it for the primary axle. So now we've just got the portal gears to take apart and have a look at. I'm probably going to have a look at this one first, because you can see like the milky substance, which clearly means that water has penetrated that at some point. So we'll have a look at that, and we'll have a proper look at that bearing as well. So to take these apart, we've got the 6 screws just there, and we've got the 2 on the front just there, and we also need to take this hex gear off, and to do that we need to undo that small Allen key. Right, so let's just split this axle apart. So there we go. So quite clearly there has been water ingress in there. You can see how milky the oil looks, sort of the same as if you had oil getting into your car's water system. You pretty much get the same thing. That usually means that head gasket's gone, but in this case this probably just means that water has got in there, and it's probably a good idea that I'm doing this little bit of maintenance. The TRX4 is marketed as a go anywhere truck, so that does include water. You just have to be conscious of what water and what you're doing. And say the last outing this one had, this went into seawater, and it's not so much the water that's the problem, it's the salt. So it's the salt that will corrode electronics and corrode metal. So that's why whenever I finish with it in the beach, certainly just get it home and just hose it off with fresh water. Right, so that's that bit done. So I'm just going to dunk that back into there. So that will just go back pressed into there. So I'm happy with that side. Now looking at this gear, maybe I didn't put quite enough grease in there to keep a little bit of a hydrolock. Bearing again still seems good, as does the little stub axle. So we'll give that a good clean off as well. And just having a look at the teeth on the gear, and again they all look really good. And we've got this other gear here which we can push through like that. Again, it's got its own bearing on the end. Right, so that's all that cleaned out. So we'll start off by putting this one back in. Again, just going to put a bit of grease in where that's going to seat, where the bearing is going to seat. And then we'll just dip the gear in the grease too. Right, we need to just reassemble the stub axle. So we've got this little pin goes in there, and then that locks that gear on into place there. And again, just going to put a bit of grease in the back of that. And then we've got this other bearing, and again, just where it seats, push that in there nicely, and we're going to just put a bit of grease in here. Again, where it seals as well. Try and avoid the water getting in if possible. I'm just going to squeeze that together. There will be some grease that comes out. I'll just give the outside of that a bit of a wipe. And then we've got the 8 screws to go back into place. 2 from one side and 6 on the other side. That's the last screw just going in. Right, we'll just give that a wipe off. Right, so I'm going to do the exact same thing with the other portal axle. However, I'll just reassemble this one just to show you what the other is going to look like. So I've put the drive shaft back in there. It's got these little flat spots on the ends. So when you put it in, you need to rotate them so that you find the gear on the inside of this, the flat point there. So you've got this bearing here has only got a flat bit, and then you've got to line up that flat bit with that one as well. And as you can see, that just goes together like that. I will just again put another smidge of grease in there again to help against the water, and then I'm just going to put the 2 screws back in there. Right, so I've disassembled that portal axle and put that back together as well, and I'm just going to reattach it to the axle. So that's the axle reassembled. Just got this bit to go back on the drive shaft. I have re-greased the little ball joint in there. The way to do that is really simple. You've got this little pin, just push that pin out, the ball joint comes off, and then you can put a bit of grease in that ball joint, put it back together, put the pin back in, and then slide this little sleeve back over the top, which keeps that pin retained. And then we just need to put this back on here, and we just need to line up the holes and put our retaining pin back in, and then we just tighten that one up. Again, don't do it too tight because you might have a nightmare to get it back undone. That's all now back together, and as you can see, both portals are turning nice and freely and all nicely greased up. So I'm going to do the same thing with the front. So I'm not going to film all the front because it's pretty much the same as what I've done there. The only difference is obviously the makeup of the front has got these little extra ball joints in, but the portal axle comes off, or the portal comes off with those 2 screws. Obviously you've got this link bar as well, so undo one of those. So that will come off, the shaft will come out, and then the axle itself is pretty much the same. So you've got the differential in there, again the same 4 screws to undo that, the same Allen key to take off the shaft there, and the portal axles are pretty much exactly the same on the inside as well. So I won't film all of that. unless I find something interesting when I take it apart. I just thought I'd quickly show you this. So I've taken out that screw there, taken out that screw there, and I've also taken out the screw for the link. So this comes out just like that. It pulls the stub axle with it, and as you can see, it's pretty much the same. So we've just got the entrance point there with bearing, and that needs to come out. And again, the portal axle disassembly is pretty much the same with the same 8 screws and the little pin there. One thing to note is when you take this apart is it's very easy to lose these little bearings that you can see just there. So it's always worth actually taking those out and putting them where you know they are, rather than mantling this around. One falls out, goes on the floor, you never see it again. And obviously they are easy enough to pick up as spares, but why have spares when hopefully you can look after the ones you've got? So I'm going to carry on disassembling this. Okay, so just taking apart the one of the front portals. So I said I'd show you what's inside. So you can see there is water ingress there. So that will be all nicely cleaned out. These portals are slightly different to the rear portals in their makeup, but not a great deal. One of the big differences is how this shaft is obviously in here. You've got 3 smaller screws, and they need to come out to remove this bearing, and the whole lot will come out then. So we've got those 3 screws out now, and we can just push on the gear there, and the whole lot will come out just like that. And then if you push that bearing back, we can take that off the end, and you can see there's just a little pin in there. We just take our Allen key and we can just poke that pin out. And then that frees that little ball and socket joint just like that. Again, I'll take that apart and I'll give that a good clean and some re-greasing. Okay, so that's all the parts cleaned up. So first thing I'm going to do is start a bit of reassembly. I'm just going to put that ball joint in a bit of grease and try and make sure that is nicely greased in there. I know some people say you don't need to grease this ball joint, but I prefer to, because it just saves on a little bit of wear and tear. Just putting that pin back through there. So just like that. And then we're going to take our gear, place it into there, and the bearing is going to go over that and hold all that in place, just like that. So we've got that in there very nicely. Now we just need to put those 3 screws back in to hold that in place. Right, so we've got that in there. Just going to put a little bit of grease on there. And just where the other gear will sit. We've got the shaft that will go in there. I'm not too worried about putting grease on the shaft itself, because obviously that gear is locked into position. That's not going to turn on that shaft. However, the shaft will turn within the bearing, so we'll just loop that bit up. And that will go in just there. I'm going to put a little bit of grease in there. So that now sits nicely in there on a nice bed of grease. I'm just going to put a little bit of grease on the teeth. Obviously got the grease on the teeth in that one there as well. And as you can see, I don't put loads of grease in. You don't need loads of grease. Because you end up having problems if you put too much grease in, because the box won't shut properly. Just make sure that turns nicely, which it does. And just get those gears meshing nicely with all the grease. And now it's just a case of reassembly with the 8 screws, 2 on this side and 6 on that side. And then that's your front portal axle done. So just doing the final reassembly on the front axle. I've put that portal in place already. Remember, we've got the flat end on the end of this drive shaft. So what you need to try and do, you need to try and match it up with the flat edge within the differential. There's a couple of ways of doing it. You can try and wiggle, maneuver it like that. If it doesn't go, then you can always twist the end of this, which in theory will turn the differential, and hopefully it will just slot in eventually. There it goes. So that's now in there. Obviously, when putting this back together, don't forget the little collars on the screws. So you can either push those into those slots first, or you can do them as part of putting in the screw. Just like that. And then also we've got the link bar to reattach. And there we go. So that is now one front axle all redone, re-greased, and all functioning perfectly. As you can see, both ends are spinning nicely. Obviously this is a locked differential, so they do spin at the same time. So basically it's same as it was for removal. We're just going to be attaching all the link bars and the suspension to all the different parts of this. So we've got the 2 that'll go in there. We've got these 2 that'll go in there and in there. And then we've got the shocks, which will also go alongside that one there, just like that. So that's now starting to reattach, and not forgetting to reattach the drive shaft. As you can see, that wiggled in really nice and easily. Now if you are just working on the Sport, this one does look a little bit different because I've got the inner fenders. If you missed that video, I will put a link above or below to show you how that one was done, because I did do a video on that. I think that was the last time this TRX4 was actually on the channel. Right, so that's the rear axle reinstalled. You can see all working good. So we move on to the front, and again, front's just the reverse of removal. So we've obviously got to attach the panhard bar there. We've also got to attach the servo arm, and then we've got the 3 shocks there. So we're going to start off with this one. This is not the stock standard servo, just a 25 kilo servo. Try and get that in camera. There we go. And I've got a metal servo horn on there. Right, so the next thing I need to do is attach this panhard bar to its original location on the axle just there. And with the camera position, it's not the easiest thing to show, but I'll give it a go. Right, so that's those linkages done. We now just need to do the same as what we did on the rears, so the final two linkages and the shocks. And that is now all done. So we can check that everything works. We still have movement. Just got that spring that's come out of its seat there. There we go, that's much better. I haven't done any maintenance on the shocks because some people say, you know, while I had these off, you know, I could have done maintenance on the shocks. It wasn't actually that long ago that I did take these off and redo the oil within them. So that's why I haven't done that. And you can see they're still really smooth and springy. Thank you very much for watching. I do hope you enjoyed that video. If you did, please remember to give me a thumbs up. And remember to hit that share button. If you want to see more of the TRX4 or anything else that goes on in the workshop, please remember to hit that subscribe button and ding that bell. And that will allow you to be notified when I release a new video. Until then, I'll see you around.